Well, good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. Thank you to Kim, thank you for Schengen for inviting me. And I bring best wishes from Minister of State Grant Shapps for our 40th anniversary celebrations today. In preparing for today's remarks, I thought I would canvass staff at DFID and ask them what has been the impression and the impact of IFPRI's work on their own work in the policy teams, in the country teams, in the research teams at DFID in the past, and then looking forward, what will they look for IFPRI to supply in the future that will impact on their own work programs. And I've summarized 3 points in each of those categories, looking back and then looking forwards. First, looking back, and I think you won't be surprised that number one priority is the ability of IFPRI to generate robust evidence for decision makers in policy and programming. IFPRI has been at the forefront in many aspects of development, influential not just in generating high quality evidence, but in communicating this to a wide audience. IFPRI has been successful in elevating debates to high level policy makers and transforming development packages. One example in the UK was IFPRI's contributions to the UK Foresight Food and Farming Study in 2010, still regarded, I think, as one of the foremost evidence synthesis in our subject area. Number two, and remarked upon by Schengen in his comments earlier, IFPRI has done a lot to highlight the critical and potentially transformative role that women play in developing country agriculture. In many ways, IFPRI has been a thought leader in this area, undertaking research to understand the relationships between both men and women in food and nutrition issues, and illuminating pathways to sustainable economic development. And number three, IFPRI has delivered major nutrition outcomes. The conference in Delhi in 2010 on this topic was one of many game-changing activities that IFPRI hosted. Its work on biofortification is showing the way for other interventions in agriculture for nutrition, both in terms of setting the bar for evidence, but demonstrating how researchers can partner with others to ensure delivery at scale. And I have just two examples of impact. In Prime Minister David Cameron's speech to the Nutrition for Growth event in London in 2013, he said, and I quote, in front of 25 prime ministers and presidents, "Regular sweet potatoes in Africa have little or no vitamin A, an essential nutrient that prevents blindness and insect deaths. But just one scoop of orange flesh sweet potato meets a child's daily vitamin A needs." And a more light-hearted example of impact, 2013 also saw one enthusiast of IFPRI science walk the length of Whitehall in a full-length, bright orange flesh sweet potato costume and wished good morning to the DFID minister as he arrived for work. So looking forward, the future will bring a world that is changing at an unparalleled rate, and despite IFPRI's considerable achievements to global development, its future relevance depends on new evidence, generating new evidence to identify opportunities for the poor, particularly women and girls, and minimizing the risks within sustainable food systems. And colleagues identified 3 areas where we see IFPRI's contribution potentially, again, to be transformative. Number one, commercial agriculture. African agriculture is undergoing profound changes. Progressive liberalization has created significant space for private sector investment in agriculture in many developing countries. And although poor infrastructure, ad hoc market interventions by governments, perceptions of risk and poor coordination between the public and the private sectors challenges some of the progress that can be made, IFPRI's contribution to evidence within commercial agriculture could play a role in bringing together some of these real and apparent risks. Number two, in the future, changing diets and nutritional challenges. Despite rapid economic growth and productivity gains in many regions, poor nutrition persists amongst rural and urban populations. An efficient and resilient agriculture and food system is critical to enable access to affordable and nutritious foods for all. Climate change and resource scarcity, as well as demographic and dietary changes, and transformations to the organization and functioning of markets, are placing increasing stress on agri-food systems, especially in poor countries. These changes will significantly affect the ability of the agricultural food system to deliver both healthy and nutritious diets to a rapidly increasing population. And finally, number 3, looking forwards, urbanization. In the next 30 years, the number of people living in cities will increase rapidly, both in absolute numbers and as a proportion of the population. There will be new opportunities and risks from rapidly increasing demand for food from an urban population, affecting local, regional, and international agricultural markets and supply chains. Migration to cities will change the demographic and social structure of many rural areas, with implications for agriculture and food systems. Increasingly organized and integrated supply chains and demands for goods and services will open new markets and create new opportunities, benefiting some people, but not necessarily all. Urban populations are likely to consume different sorts of food, more processed food, more animal-sourced food, leading to significant changes in diets and on health. People in cities are more likely to eat what has been processed, packaged, transported, and stored, changing the risk from foodborne disease in poorly regulated markets. And up to 50% of food prepared, even in developing countries, is wasted, representing a huge loss of value, and it could become an important trajectory for developing countries. IFPRI has a critical role to play in all 3 of these areas in the future. The last 40 years have been a testament to how effective an organization IFPRI is. The future challenges and the needs for new, robust evidence for those making decisions from IFPRI are enormous. But we look forward at DFID to working with IFPRI and with all of you in the room to try to meet the future challenges for food and nutrition security. Thank you very much.